Set. Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and call to order the County Planning Commission for July 8th, 2024. If you'll please call the roll.
Yes, Commissioners Borja. Conklin.
Here.
Corona Sabagnano.
Here.
Devlin.
Here.
Rathel.
Here.
And we do have our quorum.
Thank you. If you'll please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you'll please make the announcements for this evening.
Certainly, the county fosters public engagement during the meeting and encourages public participation, civility, and use of courteous language. The Commission does not condone the use of profanity, vulgar language, gestures, or other inappropriate behavior, including personal attacks or threats directed towards any meeting participant. Seating may be limited and available on a first-come, first-served basis. To make an in-person public comment, please complete and submit a speaker request form to the clerk. Each individual will be invited to the podium to make a comment. Members of the public may send a written comment, which is distributed to Commission members and filed in the record. Contact information is optional and should include the following. Should include the meeting date and agenda or off-agenda item number to be sent as follows. Email a comment to boardclerk@saccounty.gov or mail a comment to 700 H Street, Suite 2450, Sacramento, California, 95814.
All right, that'll move us to our non-contested portion of the agenda. Will you please call item number 1?
And your item number 1 this evening is PLNP 2023-00011. It's for tentative parcel map, use permit amendment, special development permit amendment, and design review. It's located at 10163 Badger Creek Lane in the Cosumnes community, and the environmental document is that it's exempt.
Good evening, Commissioners. Todd Smith, Planning Director. I would like to note that Commissioner Borja has arrived, so we do have a full commission. Item number 1 is non-contested. Staff is available to present the item if you desire. Up to you.
Any commissioners want to see a presentation or have questions for staff this evening? All right, we don't have any this evening. At this time, we'll invite the applicant up to address the commission if they would like to. Not required, but you'd be welcome to if the applicant's in attendance this evening. All right. With that, we'll move on to public comment.
And there are no additional public comments.
All right, we're going to go ahead and close public comment, and we can move to deliberation or any further questions for staff. Or a motion this evening?
Second.
All right, we have a motion is for staff recommendation.
That's correct.
All right, a motion from Commissioner Borja for staff recommendation and a second from Commissioner Conklin. Any further deliberation? Please call the roll.
Commissioners Borja.
Yes.
Conklin.
Yes.
Corona Sabagnano.
Yes.
Devlin. And Rathel.
Yes.
And the motion carries unanimously.
All right, that will move us to our contested portion of the agenda this evening. Please call item number 2.
And your item number 2 this evening is PLNP 2021-00275. It's a boundary line adjustment, abandonment, conditional use permit, special development permit, development plan review, and design review. It's located at the northwest corner of South Watt Avenue and State Route 16, Jackson Road in the Cordova community, and the environmental document is a mitigated negative declaration.
Thank you. All right, may we bring up the presentation, please? Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Nate Doberneck with Planning and Environmental Review. The project before you this evening for item 2 is PLNP 2021-00275, the Maverick Gas Station Convenience Store Boundary Line Adjustment, and as mentioned, the Road Abandonment Development Plan Review, Special Development Permit, and Conditional Use Permit. Big title, a lot of different items today. We'll go to the next slide. The overall location is within the Cordova community. This overview here, this oblique aerial looking northeast, gives, I think, a good understanding of the context of the site. That large wedge you can see with all the dirt and tendrils, that is the active Tykert facility within the unincorporated county. That is the Perkins plant there to the right. The project site is about 90 acres, bounded in yellow. Really, all of the stuff we're going to be talking about today is on that little corner. If I get my zapper working, right around there. This is really what we're going to be talking about today, is this little wedge-shaped piece, but it does involve, because of the boundary line adjustment, the overall 90 acres. We have the city of Sacramento to the south, another portion of Sacramento up to the north, and then this South Watt Avenue is a bright dividing line between the heavy industrial uses of the active aggregate plant and the Rosemont community to the east. The overall 90 acres are portioned into 3 lots, shown here as 1, 2, and 3. And lot 1 in the lower right corner, again, this is where we're going to be focusing our discussion for development purposes, is 2 parcels. If you might recall, it's a little tricky, but legal lots can have multiple assessors' parcels, in which case is the case here for lot 1. To be abundantly clear, everything we're seeing here, this image is going to go away. We're going to see outlines of this. There is no proposal to touch any of the mining activity. That's operating under an existing use permit from the early 80s, and so we're not dealing with that at all. The boundary line adjustment does not affect the operations of the mine. There is some landscaping we'll get into a little later on, but all of the mining activity will remain as is. And again, just to be super clear, all of the development proposal is on this flat portion of the site, not the mining portion, which occurs all over here. So to zoom in, this shows where the proposed gas station that we're going to be talking about would be in the lower corner here. This shows the proximity across South Watt Avenue to the Montebello apartments in the RD10 zone. This is that Aspen specific plan for the city of Sacramento. That's been on ice for a long time. No proposal at this time to develop it. This is South Watt Avenue and SR 16 or Jackson Road at the intersection. A lot of the story can be told in our zoning diagram with the overlay. This is M2, the entire property with the 90 acres, which is our heavy industrial zone. And we have RD5, our low density residential, and some RD10, that's the Montebello apartments. And what's very important to note is that we have this. This is the Cordova Neighborhood Preservation Area. This occurs in 8 separate locations within the Cordova community, and its sole purpose is sort of called out here in the bottom, is to really look at those adjacencies and minimize the impacts from industrial uses to residential and vice versa to ensure that industrial operations can continue without allowing residential to encroach too closely. Our natural dividing line here is that 6-lane South Watt Avenue. That neighborhood preservation area extends about just shy of 500 feet parallel to the western edge of South Watt Avenue. Our entitlement request is going to be over 2 different slides just for space purposes to break it up. I'll be talking about each one of these in turn and pausing after 4 of the items: the boundary line adjustment, the road abandonment, the conditional use permit, and the development plan review in case there's any questions, but we're really going to be, again, focusing on the development side. The boundary line adjustment will be to modify the 3 existing lots to reconfigure them into more suitable development for the properties along South Watt Avenue, which we'll see in a moment. The abandonment is going to be that of the never used portion of Man Love Road, which we have no need for and there's no desire to maintain. The conditional use permit would be for a new automobile service station, gas station, the neighborhood convenience store in the heavy industrial district, and then a small thing to go 6 inches higher on the fuel island canopy. Page 2 of the entitlement request is our special development permit. The applicant has requested to go 20% larger for the overall business sign that is going to be on the building and the fascia of the fuel canopy, as well as a 40% increase for the monument sign. Staff did look at this, and we did go through the development plan review and design review, and there were some enhanced architectural features that we'll talk about when we get to the building elevation, as well as the distance from the road for this building. It's sort of pushed back from the road that we felt would be supportive of a larger business sign for the special development permit, that enhanced design essentially justifying the special development permit request. Everywhere within the Cordova industrial uses neighborhood preservation area, you do require a development plan review for approval by the Planning Commission. So that is a standard, and that would be applied to this as well. And as always, our design review to determine substantial compliance with the countywide design guidelines. The first item is our boundary line adjustment. On the left and the right, we have 2 slightly separate drawings. The one on the left is our existing legal lots as created, and the drawing on the right is the more CAD maybe precise. You can see the curvature is a little different on South Watt, but that is straight from our boundary line adjustment drawing. Currently, we have lots. There it is. 1, 2, 3 legal lots. So lots 2 and 3 become 1. Or again, we're not merging, we're just adjusting lot lines. Lot B, instead of ending in this strange little taper that's very hard to develop, the applicant is creating essentially a curved rectangle with sufficient depth to accommodate future commercial development along South Watt. And the heart of it all is the corner, if I can get that on there, with the gas station on Lot A. So again, that development would occur on A and B. C would remain as is for the construction purposes. Any questions on the boundary line adjustment? I can go back or keep going. All right, I'll keep going. The road abandonment, not much to say on this. Old Man Love Road, you can see right away that alignment. South Watt Avenue used to come straight south, arrow true, and it was curved because the other road was built a little bit to the east, so they had to make that curved connector. That former easement for Man Love Road has sat disused and is no plans for the county to use it at all. DOT has no objection to abandoning this and returning it to Tykert for private property. The development plan review, North Now, is to our left. It just fit better on the screen that way. This really summarizes all of the development activity that would be occurring on the proposed parcel A and B after that boundary line adjustment. A couple things to note here is, number one, this beige or tan line is a private road that would occupy parcel B and come across and connect South Watt Avenue with the new intersection here, coming down south again to the right and connecting to State Route 16 Jackson Road. This facilitates future development on parcel B, which would occur. Parcel B extends a little bit to the north, and then all of this. You can imagine this being sort of carved up in the future, perhaps maybe 2, 3 additional lots. You're not going to get many curb cuts on South Watt Avenue. There's already too much traffic. It's not going to be Folsom Boulevard with curb cuts every 20, 30 feet. By including a private drive aisle, what you're doing is allowing vehicles to pull in and access from the rear and avoiding additional curb cuts on South Watt Avenue, which is currently about 36,000 cars a day, north and south. All that private road also leads to the future development of Lot A, where the Maverick gas station would be built. We'll get into those site plans in just a moment as well. Currently, there would be a new right-in, right-out access off of South Watt and a right-in, right-out access off of State Route 16 Jackson Road. And then you can see the building is fairly set back from the corner, and then the monument sign would be right up here. That was one of the reasons, again, for that special development permit, to increase the business signage. The conditional use permit, as always, all gas stations do require a conditional use permit with approval from the Board of Supervisors. This represents a street level view. You can see the oversized 40% larger monument sign. And I do want to point out that the landscaping plan does include a double row of trees as well. And the gas station to the rear. This is an example of a typical Maverick fueling station. What's interesting to note about this gas station is that it has 2 sides. One for standard passenger vehicles with the 7, the dispensers, and then the other side, which accommodates what's called the high flow for RVs, big rig trucks and whatnot, which is typical, again, of Maverick's offerings. This would also include an RV dump station. And I do want to make a correction. It will have EV charging stations, so I believe that this is inaccurate. I believe a later site plan has included those. This is an example of a typical interior. Maverick has a very distinct architectural interior identity, and this looks maybe something like this. But they do also offer hot prepared food, and that's one of the reasons that you're going to see dining tables in the floor plan, which is within the attachment in your packet. And we are processing a separate PCN request because it is high crime and over-concentrated. That would be heard only by the Board of Supervisors. That would not be discussed today, to be clear, even though Attachment 10 did have comments to that effect. Public comments oftentimes merge different aspects of a project into one. The overall site plan for the Maverick gas station, you can see the passenger side, to the east, which is upper on your screen, the high flow at the bottom. Yours is your right in, right out. This is future development, could occur at some particular point in time, but overall, it's a corner gas station. You've seen a lot of these before. This just has particular distinctions with the edge conditions. The landscaping includes that double row of trees, as I mentioned, a variety of other trees along the boundary here between parcel A and parcel B. We do recognize that this right here, the throat of the drive aisle, these trees might be removed at some future time. Again, because we are in the Cordova Neighborhood Preservation Area, we would assess it at that time for a development plan review. They are not required for parking lot shading. All of our parking lot shading is accommodated by the other larger trees. And then we'll talk about these trees in just a moment. These are something separate. The existing gravel pit, if we call it that, the Tykert Perkins plant, is required by its use permit and our zoning code to have landscape screening along the buffer, and it does. If you've driven by the site, it has a sentinel row of very mature and thriving redwood trees and bushes. Some of those would have to be removed to make way for that new private drive aisle that connects from South Watt Avenue down to Jackson Road. As a result of taking out that little portion, the applicant would, to maintain consistency with their existing 1980s use permit for the gravel mine, put in that new, where that bright line is, a new row of trees. They would not be redwoods, unfortunately. We now use a little wiser choices, less water-thirsty trees. So there's a variety of more drought-tolerant trees that we're expected to stay. They would be maintained with permanent drip irrigation. And these trees, what's left, would remain in place until such time as development might occur on parcel B. So you'd have essentially a double row of trees sort of providing that visual screening until these smaller trees had a chance to grow up, and whatever future time that might be developed. The applicants can speak more on their timeline if they have one. We're not aware of any development proposal for parcel B. These are the architectural renderings. This is the corporate prototype for all of your Maverick gas stations. You might have seen these before, very similar. The iconic doghouse, gabled roof. And some of the design features we want to note here is that you have the entryway with that storefront windows. Again, a larger storefront window to see onto the outer south patio. And then when we get to the elevations, very similar to that, and this is something that we did work with the applicant team, the Design Review Advisory Committee. This is what would have been the back of the house, the backside where the high flow fueling ones. We opened up that door to add a little more light and a little more graphics to make that point of entry more feature. And these are spandrel windows. They're not true. They reach into the storage units or the coolers, but they provide that image of full four-sided architecture, at least on that backside. One of the changes also made by the applicant was under the Design Review Advisory Committee, was to get rid of that crimson and replace it with the sandy beige. I believe that the applicant can speak to that, but they were in agreement with that design review suggestion. And this is your standard fueling facilities. As always, we did the environmental review. We did have a full initial study, which resulted in a mitigated negative declaration that was released for 30-day public review this spring. Out of that 30-day review, we had 2 comments from other government agencies, sort of boilerplate letters that just acknowledged that they had read it. We received 0 public feedback on that, and that was publicly noticed. Under our advisory recommendations, it did receive the 3 levels. You can see the summary chart at the bottom. The Design Review Advisory Committee was overall fairly favorable. They did make some suggestions, as we talked about, with the elevation changes, some colors on the fueling canopy, but did agree that it would be in substantial compliance with the design guidelines. We went to the Cordova Community Planning Advisory Council almost 2 years ago. And the first time was to introduce the project. They asked us to come back once the traffic study had been released, and we did that. We came back a second time that was much more heavily attended, and we had a robust discussion as outlined in your staff report on that. Ultimately, there was significant community opposition, as noted in the staff report. You've seen attachment 10 with the letters and the additional 4 comments we received today. However, the Cordova Community Planning Council did feel that the project was supportable, and they did vote 4-1 to recommend approval of this project, with the 2 caveats, one being the light pollution prevention and the second being the bypass traffic present. After this meeting, the applicant did submit a revised photometric plan that's included within the attachment in your staff report, and that did meet all of the criteria there with the backlights and the low lights and the light trespass prevention. The bypass traffic prevention was an idea to put some sort of concrete barrier to prevent bypass traffic from that private road from going eastward into Canberra. So far, that's proved untenable. designing the particular little piece of concrete to make all trucks and not interfere with the lane of traffic. There's a very constrained area. So instead, it would be no through traffic with signage to deter truckers from going through into the residential neighborhood. It's not necessarily a bypass, but if they were mislaid, it could create some local traffic challenges. Overall, staff does recommend that the Planning Commission recommend to the Board of Supervisors approval of this project, in that we determine that the environmental document for the mitigated negative declaration is adequate and complete, and approve the boundary line adjustment, the abandonment of Old Man Love Road, the use permit for the gas station, then a special development permit for the larger business signs and monument sign, and that the design review and development plan review are both consistent with the Cordova neighborhood preservation area as well as the countywide design guidelines, and finally adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting program. That concludes my presentation. I have a overall slide here to facilitate discussion purposes. We have the illustration of the proposed gas station up top, the site plan. It's a little pixelated, but you kind of get the idea, north being at the top, and then the overall development plan with this brown line indicating future Lot B, and then down here, Lot A. The green line would be that new row of replacement trees to stay in consistency with the existing use permit for the mining operation. And then the beige one is that private road leading from Canberra southward down to SR 16. That does conclude staff presentation. We have Gary Gasperi with Department of Transportation Traffic available here for any technical questions, and the entire applicant team is here from Maverick, Tykert, and RSC Engineering. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for staff this evening? Commissioner Borah?
Thank you so much for the presentation, sir. Quite a handful, and appreciate that we're already getting this far ahead in a what seems to be like a 2 or 3 year journey. For Canberra, I was wondering if the DOT folks can help us out here. What are the proposed transportation improvements that are going to be happening in Canberra, and then what are the other proposed transportation improvements that are going to be happening on Watt and Jackson?
So for Canberra, right now the applicant is conditioned to install a modified 6x2 intersection. The reason why it's going to be modified is one of the conditions is to make sure that the trucks exiting Maverick do not enter the neighborhood eastbound on Canberra. We're still looking at so the condition is that they have to install an improvement to the satisfaction of DOT. Signage is one option, but obviously there could be more physical ways to prevent trucks from turning. We just have to find a solution that also doesn't cause a roadway hazard to southbound traffic as well. For the improvements on the north leg of South Watt Avenue, since they're installing their final frontage, there'll be a dual left turn lane, 2 through lanes, and a right turn pocket. So the backup that Nate was actually showing on his satellite image earlier, that should be reduced greatly with another left turn pocket. And then for Jackson Highway, originally that was controlled by Caltrans, but it's since been relinquished to the county. So they will be installing a median to restrict left turn access of that driveway.
On Jackson, right, sir?
Correct, on Jackson.
Understood. Do we need to be able to, as part of the relinquishment from Caltrans, do we need to maintain a specific level of service with the amount of throughput of the vehicles going in and out of Jackson Highway?
So for county's level of service, they would have to follow our level of service standard of E for an urbanized area.
Okay, understood. One of the comment letters, sir, mentioned about the traffic improving from like an F to like a D. Would you, where would that be coming from? Is it because of the traffic light improvements, or perhaps the mitigation measures that you have going down South Watt?
Yeah, the South Watt improvement, the corridor for South Watt that's happening south of Jackson Road will greatly alleviate a lot of the existing congestion once it gets installed.
All right, awesome. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And then just one follow-up question, sir. That corner had quite a number of, I don't want to say unhoused residents, but there were community folks that the county, a few months ago, I think, were able to help relocate and move. And then there's signage now that they put to say no more staying. I was wondering, have we, I actually drove down there coming to this meeting, but have we had any issues again with any of the unhoused or any of the populations that were asked to move from that section of the area?
As we all know, that does continue to be a challenge throughout the county, especially in unoccupied sites, which is one of the reasons that development of this site is perceived to going to reduce that. Tykert is very well aware of that, and they do take steps. There's cars get abandoned, encampments do occur. These get cleaned up on a regular basis. I was in touch with the sheriff. There's no regular outstanding issues with the site. Like they've been proactive in all of this, and all code cases related to abandoned cars or encampments have been resolved to BPI's satisfaction. It's just an ongoing site maintenance issue that we encounter everywhere.
Okay, understood, sir. Thank you. And then just one last question about the deviation from the signage area. I met with the applicants on site a couple of weeks back. I just want to share this on the record, but is part of the request to increase the overall signage, is that also to comply with state law to make sure that we have the appropriate amount of, how much we're charging for gas for customers and things like that?
Within our zoning code, we exclude the fuel price itself from the overall sign area, and so we subtract that. So whatever the the dollars and cents are, that is removed, and whatever size that needs to be, we would let them work that out with whatever state agency regulates that. And then the remainder is just the overall sign itself, the leftover dimensions, the height, and all that. And in this case, as we can kind of see it here, that little wedge, that little tiny wedge near where that red dot is, that's the monument sign, but then the building's pretty far back. It's not really crowding the corner like we see with a lot of gas stations. And so with the applicants working with the Design Review Advisory Committee and making certain modifications to enhancements to the overall building, we felt that could be supported to have a certain presence there. Maverick is new to the area. The applicant can speak more to that. They're not as maybe well known as, say, a Chevron or an Arco. So I do recognize their need to get their brand out there in an emerging market.
Okay, thank you, sir. That's it for now, Chair. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Other questions for staff this evening?
Can you confirm that there is a left turn from the private drive to South Watt? Is there?
That if you were driving, if I can get this to go straight, following this road up and you're entering at Canberra, I believe this is a 2-lane road, which you would be able to make a left heading up Watt Avenue. Yes, I'm seeing some nods behind me. That is confirmed, yes.
I'll ask the follow-up question to that because it ties right in. I understand the condition correctly. There's also going to be a crosswalk there for folks to cross into the neighborhood.
Yeah, it's my understanding this is right now a 3-way intersection. We do see this at shopping centers where you have a private drive connect to a public road. It'd be a new signalized intersection. You have to have a signal here. You'd never get out otherwise. And then, crosswalks here and down here as well, both connectors to the residential areas.
Thank you. Next question is there any difference, and I think I know the answer, but I just want to confirm because there's a lot of things in our use tables and I get things wrong sometimes. Is there any difference between a truck stop or like some place that has these high capacity pumps and an auto service station? Is there a difference in the zoning code?
Unfortunately, our zoning code, to my understanding, and I know I have a planning director here with me, we don't have a definition for truck stop. We have truck draying yards. We have this would fall under the general caveat of a automobile fueling facility, even though don't really think about trucks being automobiles. They all are, and essentially, if you're fueling, in this case, they're doing both, it would just fall under that umbrella. We don't have anything distinctive for truck stops.
So a truck stop, or what we may call, some of us may call a truck stop, although that's not defined, would be the same use permit in a commercial, a mixed use, or an industrial zone under the use tables? Like this would be, it would be the same process in a commercial zone.
Having just done a cross-country trip, we stopped at a lot of truck stops, and they have the showers, the laundry, the lounges, usually for a proper truck stop, and also storage for the vehicles. The one key distinction here is that there is no overnight parking of vehicles at this facility. It's not set up for that. There is no large separate lot that's available. The existing proposal for Lot B is going to be constrained. There was that little row of trees right here, and there is no pavement leading into this, and that would be up to Tykert to manage that to prevent trucks from parking overnight. This is not designed as an overnight truck facility, but to capture essentially drive-through or drive-by traffic, just like everything. I'm going to get some gas, I can get in there, it's big enough for my rig or for my regular car, and that's where this is set up. We're not looking at this under the purview of a traditional truck stop, if you will.
Thank you for that. That's helpful clarification. On the signage, I know we've hit this a few times with auto service stations. It seems like there's always an exception to those rules. Does that signage includes any signage that goes on the pumps also? I feel like that was what came up last time. It was like we had to account for screens that were on the pumps and a logo that was on the pumps. Is that the case here?
The sign package that I looked at was essentially the wall signs, the Maverick logo. Get the pointer here. Again, you can see the large Maverick logo, the ones on the fascia. When we get into the granular dispenser ones, those were not, I didn't get into that level of detail with that. I was looking more at the larger advertising signs, the ones that you typically see at the dispensers. You're already there. That's not designed to lure you in from the street. So the answer would be no in terms of the elaborate calculations necessary to get all of those in.
Got it. So the 20% and 40%, it's 20% on that sign that's on the building and 40% on the freestanding pole sign.
All other signs in total add up to 20%. That would be above the fuel fascia where you have the Maverick logo and its name, and all the wall signs would be the plus 20%, and then the monument sign is plus 40.
Got it. So the monument sign is a tall with the fuel prices on it also.
Correct.
Okay. Got it. Just making sure I was understanding what the numbers were representing. So thank you. Commissioner Conklin?
First of all, thank you very much for the excellent presentation. Really appreciate the staff's analysis. Just had a couple of clarifying questions, if you could just help me kind of better understand. As far as transit, maybe DOT can speak to any bus stop pad. Curious what is being incorporated in this project to enhance pedestrian and traffic network.
Clerk, I'm sorry, I did something. Killed it.
Hi, Metro. Can you?
All right, well, we could bring back up that I pushed the wrong button. Sorry about that. Yes, on the far side of all of our major roads, and in this case, this would be westbound 16 or Jackson Road, there would be a new bus turnout, and there's going to be a bus stop there. Currently, there is no shelter or anything like that, but we're sort of future planning for this. So there would be a transit stop for a bus on the south side of the facility with a full turnout. And that's typical for all of our far side major road intersections. We would have a bus stop.
Okay, thank you. And I didn't hear too much as far as light pollution, if there's been adjustments or any concessions made by the applicant as far as any adverse light pollution, changing the angle of the lights or minimizing their footprint in any way. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. After that Cordova CPAC meeting where we did get the second one where the Cordova Community Council said, hey, we want to see conditional approval, please address these light concerns. The applicant did resubmit a photometric plan. And to be very clear, I've looked at, if not hundreds, dozens and dozens of these. This was the best one I've ever seen. I actually called the photo designer and said, I find no fault with this. It's too bad you're retiring because you do really good work. And I'm not trying to pump the project, but they did do a really good photometric plan. They put light shields and baffles. The light level was low. It was even. They're 24-foot high poles, but the double row of trees and the a 0-degree tilt. It was a very effective photometric plan. If it is built according to that plan, it should be very effective in minimizing light trespass and pollution. They even brought the light levels down to less of a bright color, more of a softer amber tone. So they were willing to work with staff on that to accommodate those light trespass, glare, and glint concerns.
Perfect. Thank you. And I know others have spoken to this, so just so I am clear on that, private drive, reversing, heading back towards Canberra, and I presume traffic would be, with signage and lighting, a forced left or right turn onto Watt, preventing or at least diverting traffic away from that residential street that wouldn't accommodate them.
I believe you'd have all three. You could stay true, go left or right. That is north or south on Watt.
So you could stay true.
I believe
And-
that is
But that would just be for lighter passenger vehicles.
Correct, yeah.
That are
Residents-
returning back and forth.
Yeah, residents
Okay.
from Rosemont would be able to direct in. The signage, as Mr. Gaspari would mention, was to deter trucks from thinking that that might be
An
a way,
option.
yeah, to get out of there.
Okay, that actually clears it up. All right, thank you very much. That's all I have.
So I didn't see anything in here about healthy food options or a certain requirement. I know there's been a couple of other applications where that was a requirement. I can't recall if that was, or I'm sorry, that it was included, but I can't recall if that was a county requirement or something that the applicant was doing.
One of our sister agencies, and we did not receive those sort of comments, and we typically don't include things unless we do receive feedback from those agencies on that. This project has been around for a while, and it was distributed several times for their consideration, but we did not receive any feedback regarding the implementation of that. However, it's my understanding that that is still a requirement of that, and the applicant can speak on that behalf, and I know we touched on that during one of the Cordova Community Planning Advisory Council meetings.
Okay, thank you. And I'm not familiar with what an RV dump station is. Can you talk about that?
Oh, yeah. Well, after you used your RV, you've got some wastewater. And this is a facility, and the applicant, again, can speak to this. I believe it's free. You are allowed to drain your waste tank onto the site, and then that's handled by the sanitary sewer system. It's essentially an attractor to lure RVs and other people on road trips to come by and visit certain locations. It's they're hard to find. There's not a whole lot of them. And the applicant can speak. I think their company logo is Adventure's First Stop or something like that. So the idea is that they would be enticing RV users to visit the site for a variety of reasons. Fueling, dumping, food, buy some ice, all that stuff.
Okay. Are there any environmental concerns or anything that was reviewed on that?
No, all of this site is fully plumbed for both potable municipal water and sanitary sewer system, and all that would be handled appropriately and permitted by our environmental management department for any standard RV dump.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Dobrnick.
You're welcome. Thanks. I'll leave it on this slide.
All right. At this time, I'd like to invite the applicant up to address the commission, and we'll get you sworn in this evening. If you're going to speak on behalf of the applicant or answer any questions, I'll have the whole applicant team stand up that may answer a question, and we'll get you all sworn in at once.
So let me lower it just a little more.
I know,
Sorry
I'm
about
short.
that. No, that's okay. Let's just angle them towards you. Yep. Perfect. Is that comfortable?
That's fine. Thank you.
So I see you all have your right hands raised, and the appropriate response is I do. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give this commission is the truth, so help you God? If you do not swear, do you so affirm?
I do.
Okay, and if you would please state your names for the record and make the statement, I have been sworn.
Tiffany Wilson, RSC Engineering. I've been sworn.
Thank you. When you come to the podium. Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners. Again, Tiffany Wilson with RSC Engineering, applicant for the Maverick gas station here at, tonight before you at South Watt and Jackson. So we're excited to finally be here after an exhaustive, long, couple-year review on this project, and we want to thank staff for their hard work with us and their presentation for tonight. And we are in agreement with all the draft conditions that we've worked with them over the past 2 years. We have been working closely also with the property owner, who's Tykert, and their mining operations. And so we do have a full team here to answer any specific questions as we get further along tonight. And I did want to, I don't want to regurgitate what Nate already described, but I wanted to kind of go over some of the public comments that we had received at the CPAC and how we evolved the site plan over the time and how we feel like we still meet all the county policies and standards. And so first foremost, we're within that Cordova neighborhood planning area, which in our view is, intended to provide the future use of industrial uses on these M2 zone properties. And we do meet, the various setbacks, landscape, parking. The only special development permit is the signage, which Nate thoroughly went through what our increase, and I can get into that a little bit later. One of the big things is maintaining that screening. So part of the mining permit is screening with landscape between the mining use and the existing residential. And
recording in progress.
So we will be planting the new trees. There'll be a variety to allow flexibility, but could be some pines, live oaks, and as well as evergreen shrubbery to the west of that private drive. And then we also will have the additional screening along Watt and Jackson, a double row landscaping between the street and the sidewalk, and then another row behind the sidewalk. The harsh lighting was a concern, and yes, we did switch to a more softer hue light, so it's the wattage has been brought down significantly from what you usually see, those crisp white lights, so ours will be more of a yellow, dimmer view. We also have dimming, so if there is inactivity for an extended period, the lights will dim. Traffic impacts were brought up, and with the county's widening improvements and then our additional widening, the traffic study shows that we will reduce the traffic. We have some extension of the turn pockets on southbound Watt to Jackson, as well as southbound Canberra left turn pocket to allow for the extra queuing that Maverick would provide. And then our fourth leg of the signal modification at Canberra, and then using signage and striping to prevent trucks from extending through to the existing subdivision. And we feel already there are a number of stop signs on those roads and speed bumps that it doesn't make sense for a truck to go that route to bypass the intersection. And we have the various driveways, so not only Canberra, but then the two driveways, one on Watt and Jackson, to allow truck traffic to get to the direction they want to go. And then to reiterate, we aren't a truck stop. It is really a gas station that allows for vehicles and trucks to fill up. So like Nate said, there are no showers, no break rooms. There's not a place for somebody to stay for an extended period of time, and then definitely no overnight truck parking. So we are a traditional gas station that allows these large trucks. And then in the high flow area, there will be non-diesel at one of the pumps to allow RVs, motorhomes, trucks that might be pulling trailers. They can utilize those pumps in that canopy that has more space that may be difficult to maneuver at a traditional gas station. There has been some concern about too many gas stations in this area. There's only 3 other gas stations within a 1 mile radius. 2 are south at Fruit Ridge and Watt, and 1 is over north on Folsom Boulevard. This is the only one that has this high flow that allows the truck traffic. And then the only one on Jackson, which has a very high number of trips and vehicles going through there daily. I will point out air quality, greenhouse gas, along with our reports. We will be an all-electric building, which is what the county is, proposing and requiring for new development, and there will be 2 EV chargers installed at the start, plus whatever else is needed, EV ready to meet the Title 24. And we'll, per the Air Resource Board, the recommendation for the high volume gas stations is to be 300 feet away from sensitive receptors, which are those apartments, and we are 300 feet away from that. During the county's initial study, they analyzed the noise, and we did not increase it to a threshold beyond the general plan policy, so there was no need for additional mitigation regarding noise. One of the other big things the public was concerned about is, rightfully so, is the housing and potential loitering. We feel that the 24-hour operation does provide eyes on the street versus a vacant site. And Maverick has a lot of policies and practices for alcohol and tobacco sales, including courses and testings to prevent any negative action regarding that. The majority of the sales of our store, of the Maverick store, is non-alcohol and tobacco merchandise. There will be fresh food options and healthy food made on site. It varies from store to store, but could be a potential of 23% to 30%. So I believe that's more than what is recommended by some of those other agencies on regarding fresh food. With the lighting, glass front storefront, video cameras inside and outside, we hope that should help deter any sort of crime that may be in this area. They also do other things like locking the electrical outlets, hose bibs, the trash enclosure will be locked. There won't be public internet and no outdoor tables to, again, prevent that loitering or people just sticking around, that shouldn't be there for long periods of time. And then, yes, separate permit for the alcohol sales will go before the board shortly, and it's just for beer and wine, not liquor. I think there's been some confusion on that, and I think that's all I got. If you guys have questions, we're here to answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Commissioner Borja, questions for the applicant this evening?
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate the summary. I was wondering, for the private driveway, what would be, perhaps if you can enlighten us, what would be your security or parking maintenance plan to deter drivers from inadvertently just parking there longer than intended, even though we do not have a intended truck parking?
So Maverick has operation, their own staff would be on alert and look to make sure that was not happening, and then could contact local enforcement if there were any code issues.
Okay, so that would still, that driveway would still be, I guess, under the, I don't want to say maintenance of Sacramento County, but we do have an enforcement ability to have the sheriff to see if they're loitering, staying, or parking their RVs for a longer period of time. And then on the, trying to understand the balancing act between the light pollution study, but also the request to have more lighting to deter crime. Like for 24/7, and a lot of folks kind of mentioned about the crime rate area. A lot of folks were asking, well, you want to have more lighting to deter crime, but then we also want to tone down the lighting so there's like no light pollution for the extending neighborhood. Sorry, forgive me, but I feel like we're kind of coming at it at both ends. So how were we able to find a happy medium to still address the concerns with public health and safety, but still minimize the amount of light pollution that may be exceeding from the neighborhoods?
Sure. So I think the poles have been reduced from, typical poles are a lot taller, maybe less light poles, but then the light spreads out further. So we've dropped the poles down to 24 feet. So yes, there might be a few extra light poles, but then the light is more centralized and doesn't flood off the property. The light is still bright per se, it's just not white, and so our eyes perceive it differently. So a softer yellow hue you don't think is as bright, even though from a security measures you will still be able to see just as well.
And on your parallel application to the sheriff, they did not have any concerns with your reduction or changes of the lighting plan?
No, so we still meet the minimum. So when I said the lights will dim, they won't turn off completely. They will still be at the minimum foot candles that's required by the county and the sheriff, so they can still see when they're patrolling.
Understood. And I understand that the intent on the northern side, Catty Corner Canberra, is to really not have any traffic going through Canberra. And then the only, I think our only mitigation measure is a signage that says, make a right only, don't go through or no through traffic. Was there any other, anything that perhaps the applicant can provide to go a little bit above and beyond to kind of address the community concerns of not going through Canberra?
Right. So we did look at trying to put some sort of physical barrier in the middle, but then now regular vehicles cannot go through, and then we couldn't get the trucks to make the turn either. So signage and striping is what we're proposing, and then we'll work with DOT to see if we can come up with maybe potential other options, maybe creating the curb radius to kind almost like a pork chop without the pork chop, but to force the trucks to turn sharper. But we did not, we just physically couldn't get a median in the middle without then preventing other cars from accessing Canberra, which we don't want to disallow regular vehicles.
So from your conversations with the community, the local throughput is not the issue, it's really the trucks on Canberra that is kind of a problem. Okay. I think I'm good for now, Chair.
Any questions for the applicant?
Yes, thank you, and thank you for your presentation. Can you maybe just kind of walk through how Maverick kind of came about this site or their selection process in general?
I'll let Maverick.
Good evening. Kevin Dice. I'm with Maverick. I'm a senior site development analyst for Maverick.
And if you could please make the statement, I have been sworn.
I have been sworn.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Do you need my address or anything like that?
Firstborn child? Nah, not tonight.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Some require it, some don't. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Site selection is very varied. For urban sites, we look for high traffic counts and also density in the area for residential, because residential would be our, residential would be our primary user of the forecourt, you know, for filling of passenger vehicles. For this site, because of the high truck count on both Watt and on Jackson, it was very attractive for us. And that's why we decided to put a smaller type of commercial court, as we call it, or high flow on this one. The way that the high flow works, there are 5 lanes there. 3 of the lanes will be able to, a truck can fill from both sides. So you'll have a primary pump and a secondary pump. So that if they have gas tanks on either side, you only have one vehicle that can get in there. You can't have more than one vehicle. They can fill up at the same time instead of putting the hose underneath the truck as I have seen before in some areas. So that's just a little bit of a description of the high flow.
But it was, just to make sure I understand, it was in part the existing tractor-trailer traffic that was on.
It was both. It was both. The high traffic count here really was the lead on this. Because with 34,000 cars a day or 36,000 cars a day on both Watt and I think it did close to Jackson as well, that's a very attractive pull from that.
All right, thank you.
As far as, I was just kind of looking at the layout and the circulation on the Maverick site, and it looks like the vehicles come in off of Jackson Road, or maybe they can come in anywhere, but they only go north on the high flow pumps. Is that right? You can't take a truck and drive it south through those pumps. You're going to keep all the traffic going one way there?
Correct.
So is that the intention? I saw a little note on saying no truck exit out on a Jackson Road, even though it's right in and right out. Is the reason behind that no truck exit there because of the flow and circulation, or is that a DOT requirement? I guess I just kind of looked at it as a bird's eye view and said it would probably make sense for trucks to be able to take a right out on a Jackson Road, but can you fill me in on that?
Correct on both. We want to be able to funnel the traffic for the trucks, RVs, vehicles with trailers, things of that nature that will utilize the commercial corridor high flow to go north, because that way you won't be having any type of movement in there that could block. As you could see from the forecourt, cars will be able to come out, and if they want to go north on Jackson, they're going to have to come out to the Canberra light. And at that point, they will need to, they will cut in front of where the high flow court will be exiting. So if a truck is trying to do a U-turn right there, which the area, you could possibly do it in there, but there isn't really enough area. Now, if a truck does, for some reason, take Canberra and come south along the private road, there is enough room for them to do a U-turn to get into the high flow area. And we made sure that there was enough room for that, because you will get that to happen. You know, we can put enough signage on both Watt and say that truck flow, please enter on Jackson, but still you'll get trucks that will try to buck the flow overall. So yeah, we'll have a sign right where the landscaping is to the north part of the lot. We'll have a sign there that says all truck exit onto Canberra at the Canberra light.
All trucks exit at the Canberra light, so you're not even going to have them exit at the right turn?
No.
Okay.
No. We'll force them out that way. It's two reasons there. It's better controlled. They won't be pulling out into traffic that's going through the intersection if they're going west on Jackson, and that could create a problem. We're not doing an acceleration lane that would be along the Tykert property on that point, so we want them to go up to Canberra and then come down and around.
Got it. And then I did meet with the applicant team out on site. I'll go on record with that. But I did drive through this, through Canberra, and what I'm remembering is it's a stop sign on Thorndike. If I'm going south, there's no traffic light that would allow a truck access or acceleration. They would have to pull out onto Jackson Road from a stop sign. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
And anybody that would even think of doing that or look at it the first time, I don't think they would ever do it a second time. The other thing is that as a typical residential roadway is, as you pull onto Canberra and you take that first hard right, that turn is a residential turn, meaning that the radius at that curve is going to be probably 20 feet, 30 feet, where a typical truck radius will run about 50 to 60 feet. So it'll be very hard to get a truck around there.
And until the property to the north is developed, is that going to be dirt? I'm just thinking of this prevention of overnight parking. I understand they could park on the private road, and that may be relatively easy, but is there a way that I can pull my truck onto that nice big
grassy area
and just chill there for a day or two?
Until the rest of the site is developed, we will be responsible for monitoring where people are parking. There will be no parking signs along the roadway to indicate that, obviously, no parking. If it comes down to that, we have to put a fence up of some sort, and we've done this at other sites. We will put a fence up, but in the beginning, we will monitor it, and if we see that trucks are pulling over and they're pulling onto the grass, we'll make sure that it doesn't happen.
And this may be a question more for Tykert than you, but is there any intended uses or type of use that would be seen on the north section of this site? Because I view this station as, not an industrial use, right? Would the expectation be to the north more commercial uses, or would it be more industrial type uses?
As far as I understand, it will be commercial uses. It wouldn't be an industrial type use. And we want something that would be compatible with the Maverick so that it would complement. And if somebody comes into Maverick, they may go over and use whatever type of commercial retail that would be there.
Do some yoga, have a cheeseburger or something like that?
Yes,
Okay.
Because we don't serve cheeseburgers.
Oh, okay.
We do burritos.
Got it. All right. Thank you. Commissioner Conklin?
Thank you very much. And I myself met with the applicants at the proposed site and did a walkthrough. I appreciate their time and efforts and wanted to make sure that was at least on record. Just out of curiosity, number of employees forecasted for this business. Could you speak a little bit to the kind of employee footprint or that the company is forecasting for the initial phase here?
We have 3 shifts that will operate. During the day, we'll have a higher number of people there because that's where a majority of the food will be made and everything else on site. So usually for the day shift, we'll have between 5 and 8 people, depending. And then for the remainder of the shifts, usually between 3, usually 3. So we have about 15 to 18 people throughout a day.
Okay. And remind me again, Maverick's footprint in California thus far is?
Okay. What's open right now, we have a site in Oroville. We have a site in Orland that's open. We have West Sacramento that's open. We are under construction on a couple in Southern California, one in Desert Hot Springs, which will open very soon. We're kicking off construction on a site in Lemoore. Now, in Northern California, we're looking at Williams. We're looking at this site. We're looking at another one at Sheldon and Stockton. We're looking at Elk Grove, and we're looking at Lodi, as well as Manteca and Lathrop.
Okay.
Lathrop should be kicking off hopefully this month. It's been a long building permit process, and hopefully we'll be able to kick that one off too.
Okay, I appreciate that. And there's a residential community that's across the street. They would be using the crosswalk to gain access to the property and utilize its services and use the convenience store, the restaurant inside. Is there, and I couldn't recall in the renditions, eating outside, shaded areas for, with the EV parking stations there, obviously you're going to have folks that need to be there for a half hour, 30, 40 minutes, and I'm just trying to get a sense of what those individuals' environment would be for waiting and for that elapsed time, and if they're eating. I saw the interior eating space, but I didn't know if there was anything for outside as well.
This has been a tough thing for Maverick. We normally put picnic tables outside, and we have a counter on the inside that we'll have chairs there, and we'll also have a couple of tables. Now, with the way that the tax system is in California, there's certain foods that if you could eat it on site, we're taxed at a different level. And as a result, it makes it a very operationally hard for us to say, oh, are you going to eat it here? Then I have to add this additional tax to you. If they, during audits, and that's a tax audit, if they determine that, well, maybe 25% of the food that you had there because of the tables we could tax, we will be assess that. So we decided in California not to put the tables out. We'll keep the counter there where you could stand at the counter. Now, it's not that we don't want the tables. It just makes it very operationally hard, particularly from a tax point of view. The other reason is in some areas, because of the homeless that go on, it's an attractive nuisance, meaning that they would sit there. And it's not that we don't want them there, or it's a tough issue on that. But it creates a situation for us. It creates a overnight situation mainly. I know that the Sheriff's Department has asked that we really trim the trees up at least 6 feet so that they can see underneath there. All the shrubs and anything else, all the bushes that we put in there have to be lower so that they can see through on that area. And at the same time, with the lighting, you were very right. I mean, it's a trade-off with the lighting. But the lighting will be substantial enough that you'd still be able to see. We do understand the security. It's not just for our customers, but it's for our workers too. I would love to say we don't have incidences. We do have incidences. We don't have a lot of robberies, but we do have, grab and go. And that's everywhere. It's not just in California. It's everywhere we are. You have some situations. And if the situation lends itself to a point that we'll need security, we will provide security. We'll provide on-site security.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Corona-Sepaniano?
Just one additional question. I think everything I was thinking has already been asked. But are all your other locations or most of your other locations 24/7?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
All of our locations are 24/7 unless the jurisdiction says no. Now, I haven't built any that the jurisdiction said no. However, I know that, where was this? Believe it or not, it was in Idaho, I believe, that they said they just don't want, it could have been near Sun Valley, that they said, nope, we want you to close at a certain time.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And the ones that are 24/7, are any of those near residential neighborhoods? Okay.
Mm-hmm. They are.
Okay. Was there any consideration on the site to not make it 24/7, given the residential community there?
No.
No? Okay.
No, it didn't. It's our standard policy to be 24/7.
Okay. Thank you.
To answer your question on the RV real quick, the RV dump is connected directly into the system, to the sewage system, and it is a very big convenience for people. We have an app that people can download, and as they're driving along, they can say, this is where we can dump. A dump, particularly in an urban setting, is very, very attractive. And a lot of jurisdictions don't want that to be pumped into their system. Like Lathrop doesn't want it, Manteca doesn't want it, Sacramento City didn't want one. So we like providing that service because it brings people in, and also it's for free. Mm-hmm.
Any further questions for the applicant?
Just one quick question, sir. Is there any ability in the future for you guys to be able to pivot should like EV RVs become a norm? Like, have you guys had a chance to speak with SMUD about potentially upgrading your transformer and how that would look like should higher capacity chargers meet your economic requirements or market requirements?
Yes. We are providing 2 EV chargers here. We are going to be plumbing for at least 4 more, if not 6, because I think it all depends on the code, and that's the California code. So there will be additional EV chargers on this. Now, in terms of pivoting from, if I get your gist of what you're saying, from gas towards EV and what our use would be out there, it's going to be a long time before it'll be full EV. California is always leading in this field, and we recognize that. And we are looking at future use of our stores as something that may not be a gas station. And what that will be, Not sure, but the building's designed that it could be readapted to something else, another type of use. It could be you take out the forecourt, you take out the high flow, and it could be used for a restaurant or subdivided into 3 different units, because that's almost a 6,000 square foot building. So you could put 3 smaller units in there.
Understood. Okay. So if I'm hearing you correctly, hopefully there's an opportunity for you guys to consider level 3 or high-speed chargers in the future. And then I did visit your West Sac location. Some of your competitors in the space, Shell, for example, in Rancho Cordova, have started using solar panels as part of their shading. I'm not sure that that's in plan here for your fueling stations, but is that something that Maverick has done in other vicinities or other projects where they've incorporated solar as part of their roofing plans?
Yes, and the only time I've been required the only time I put them on the store is when I'm required to put them on the store. We have in a few other ones. I have a store that I'm working on in Madera, and Madera County requires solar panels. Williams, believe it or not, is requiring solar panels. So we will do solar panels. Now, the canopy itself is designed that it can handle the solar panels. So structurally, it's designed to do that. So down the road, we could do that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Deitz.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to move to public comment now. I've got 2 requests to speak, but if there's anybody else that would like to address the commission this evening, you can see the gentleman at the back to get a speaker request form. Please go ahead and fill one of those out for me, and you can turn it into the clerk of the board right down here. First up, we're going to have Stacy Bell Singh.
Hello.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you. I'm surprised to see not so many people here today. My name is Stacy Bell Singh. I am a resident and a business owner in Rosemont. I sent an email earlier, not sure if you guys got it. Before I start my remarks on the community, I recently was in Hurricane. Y'all shut my store down. I lived in Hurricane, Utah for several years, and it's part of my children's childhood. So it's sad to see that go. Overall, I think for me, and I know for several of our residents, but I can't speak for people that necessarily aren't here. One of the things that I would like to see is a new traffic study and emission study. When these were done, and I know it sounds recent when you're looking at the numbers, but we were exiting COVID for one, and we are just now getting state workers back in. They're just now being asked to come back to work. We've also had a San Francisco exit, and our traffic has increased insanely in our area. What would have taken us 15 minutes to get somewhere before is now taking us 30, 40 minutes, sometimes because of the increase of traffic alone. One of the notes that I was kind of taking while I was listening, trucks is not necessarily commercial trucks, in my view. We have plenty of vehicles that are diesel driven, whether they be pickup trucks. We have, like small commuter cars that are actually diesel. I live off of Thornhill. I'm not included in the mailings, unfortunately. So I didn't even hear about this until the end of last week. Thankfully, somebody had told me about it, so I could speak on it. So my concern is we have our youth, we have our people walking dogs, whatever, but we're the type of community where it's a modern day, everybody gets along Mayberry kind of thing in a way. And our kids are outside playing, and grandkids, and everybody's just kind of enjoying their day. And to have to watch out for more vehicles coming through the side streets, because it's not just going to be large commercial trucks, is a concern. And that goes along with the emissions too. Those emissions are coming straight through our neighborhood. Another thing that I've been we've also talked about is lighting. The lighting is addressed on site. The lighting is not addressed as it comes through to and from the Maverick. You're going to have a lot more vehicles shining their lights into the apartments, and you're going to have sirens from potential accidents or ambulances from whatever, right? So you're going to have a lot more noise and light pollution in addition to the actual site itself. And I appreciate all the efforts that have gone into considering the site, but I don't think we're considering just outside of that site. Also, our
Stacey,
taxes.
could I have you make your closing comments?
I'm sorry?
Can I have you make your closing
Yes.
comments?
And then taxes is another huge thing. Where are taxes going to go? They're going to go to the city. They're not coming into unincorporated county. The roads are going to be fixed on city. They're not going to be fixed on county. So I think those are the main points.
Thank you so much.
And I apologize, Chair Riegel. Should I set it for the 3-minute general time limit?
Let's go 3 minutes tonight. We only have a few folks tonight, so
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll let
Thank
you.
you.
I let you go three minutes already.
Okay, that's okay. So I'll leave that alone as personal. Crossroading personal to business. I was an elected board member of Rosemont Community Association, and now I own Fusion Rose Events. One of the things that has been upsetting is as a business owner, I'm not able to get an ABC permit. I am the only banquet hall in our vicinity. I cannot get an alcohol permit because we are oversaturated. But I'm on the county side. Literally across the street, you have somebody that's going to be eligible to get an alcohol permit, albeit wine and beer, it's still an alcohol permit.
Ma'am, I apologize. You're at almost 4 minutes now.
Oh,
We
thank
want
you,
to make it
Stacey.
Oh, I'm sorry.
consistent.
Okay. I thought we were
Thank
going
you so
there.
much.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Next up, I've got Gary Miller. And it looks like Gary is speaking on behalf of an organization this evening. So he's the president pro tem of RJOC, so we'll give him 5 minutes this evening.
Got it.
And then Patricia Bowers, you'll be on deck. Welcome, Mr. Miller.
Yes, thank you for introducing me. Henceforth, the Rosemont Jones Oversight Committee we can relate to as RJOC. I just wanted to let you know that I only became aware on Tuesday afternoon of this week of this meeting, and for reasons I will elucidate, I first of all had believed that this meeting was originally going to be between September and December of last year, but for reasons I'll tell you, I had maybe presumed that since the sign was still up on the corner, that it was a property that was available, and for reasons I'll mention to you that we'll see, although it's going to be public knowledge now, although I am sure you each have your law enforcement abilities that you can converse with. There was reason to believe that, probably using common sense, that Maverick and Tyker decided to rescind their application. That said, I'm wearing this Hawaii hat so we can think of maybe instead of this heat, a place where there's palm trees and Mai Tais and maybe just ice cold water to alleviate the heat we're having. And of course, this is for the good things that the Kings have done recently. But getting into the seriousness of why we're here today, the RJOC was formulated in April and May of last year because the populace of which in the target area that received mailings this time, there is approximately 3,000 residents who are vehemently against this project, against the gas station. Literally, I won't go into it. There's people that want to attend today, especially the treasurer of the organization, that I don't have time to go. These recent Sacramento Bee articles that refute what they have misled you on, and unfortunately, it may be a good company, but this is not the right site for it. The people do not want it. They were adamantly against it for obvious reasons, such as truck stops, unfortunately, mean prostitution. There's going to be drug trafficking. And because of the 24/7, I've been made aware last year, and that's why I thought maybe they were going to rescind this, that evidently a south of the border cartel got wind of this, and they could never build something like this because they never get through the ramifications and the permits, et cetera, et cetera. But here it's like been evidently to them a godsend. They will be using this, to my understanding, if it is constructed, as a to-do business hub for illicit activities. And who knows if there's going to be, a turf war for the locals, and they're doing it because of the access of the roadway and the fact that it will be 24/7. In any case, debris will be among the neighborhoods because traffic will be, because of what they were going to do with Canberra, it will go down to Thornhill, and that will be a picnic ground with broken Jim Beam bottles, et cetera, et cetera. 3 o'clock in the morning, we're going to be hearing 16-wheelers blowing their air horns to try and avert what is going to be an imminent collision. And you have, as you find in the last meeting, the clerk, there was 15 people that spoke. Every single one of them in the community was against it. Every phone call that came in on the loudspeaker was against it. As our democracy, we expect the citizens, the people, just as we celebrated recently Independence Day, we expect that you're going to individually see to it that you vote no, because it's against the will of the people of Rosemont. And furthermore, to show the vehement disapproval, there's 3 things you should be aware of. I have an $85,000 slush fund that's to be used at our disposal to thwart this. We also feel that a barricade will be put up, all entrances and exits to the site and to Tykert, as well as the fact that because of the diminution of quality of life, we expect reparations for those that have lived there 10 years or more.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. If you could make your closing comments.
We expect $50,000 each from Tykert, from Maverick, and from the county from being complicit. So
thank you, Mr. Miller.
That, as well as the fact that you can check the emails that you probably are getting in today for people that couldn't attend. I couldn't even get a quorum to get here because of the short time. But the community is vehemently against it, and we expect you to honor, just as we just honored Independence Day, and our democracy is based on the will of the people, not outside people that are intervening and trying to usurp our rights and desires.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Appreciate your time tonight. Next up, we've got Patricia Bowers. 3 minutes, yes, please.
Okay. It was mentioned that about speed bumps on Canberra. We've been trying through the county to get speed bumps in the first part of Canberra for many years, and we've been turned down. We do have an excess amount of trucks that do make a U-turn. The first stop sign there on Canberra, I live right there, and I watch trucks daily do U-turns there. Cement trucks, moving trucks, semis. they always do a U-turn right there and go back to the light so they can make another left-hand turn or a right-hand turn on Canberra. It is excessive, and every day I can count at least 5 trucks, semis, that do a turn right there at that first stop sign. And we need red curbs. The repainted curbs. I asked a gentleman that had a county truck the other day about who I contact. He didn't know. We had red curbs right there by the apartments to keep from cars getting left there. I take care of that whole corner there of cars that are just left there. I have like a speed thing for county that I take care of that whole corner. And we need the curbs painted so we don't have the cars just left there. And the trucks now that are left on Jackson Highway by the apartments, there is a whole side there on the right-hand side that the trucks park there at night. And on a given day, there's 4 or 5 trucks, semis, that are parked along those apartments at night. And any given day, you can go down there anytime, and sometimes there's cars there. I've seen women get out of the cars and go to the trucks, but it's an issue. And also, have you made any accommodations for the people to turn into the apartments on that road? Because they cannot turn into the apartments now and make a left-hand turn because the traffic gets so heavy right there that they can't turn into the apartments. So a lot of them will go down Canberra, go all the way down to Thornhill, and continue to make right-hand turns so they can get into the apartment complex. So there's no way into their own apartments. And the speed goes from 55 down Watt Avenue, South Watt, and they do, and you can hear it day in and day out, the speed needs to be controlled. And if we have more traffic, which we're getting because of the housing, something needs to be done, and it's not being monitored. I worked at CHP South area, and North area says the same thing. They don't have the manpower, but the speed needs to be cut down.
Thank you, Ms. Powers. All right, any other public comment this evening?
More public comment this evening.
All right, at this time, I'd like to invite the applicant team back up to address any of the public comments this evening, if they'd like.
I think the only item that we wanted to mention is this is a county property, so the taxes will stay in the county.
Are you guys aware of trucks that are parking overnight on Jackson Road? Is there any, I know it wouldn't be on your property, but I would imagine this could exacerbate the problem and maybe something that Maverick has dealt with in other locations. How do you do that other than calling the county sheriff to move them on?
Well, I actually, Gary, did the widening plan by the county. You guys, are you still doing the 2 right turn pockets, and won't that take up quite a bit of the space that the trucks are using right now?
If they're referring to Jackson Road east of South Watt, so that's county property. We shouldn't allow parking there. I'll check in on that. Anything east of South Watt is still controlled by Caltrans. But yes, the double right turn pocket will, as well as installing frontage, will greatly reduce parking because now you have proper frontage. It's not just a dirt shoulder.
Right.
Excellent. And as far as red curbs go in residential neighborhoods for no parking, is that a common county approach?
Yeah, it's not a county standard to stripe curbs red, because red striped curbs is fire lanes. So The only time I've seen no parking signs placed is typically on major roadways, not within neighborhoods.
Can we check in on that and see if there was a potential fire lane that was there in that neighborhood, that originally there were red curbs? If we could check in with maybe past records, if the residents are saying they were painted red at some time?
Sure. What intersection exact?
That's
Canberra and South Watt. Will do. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll look to my other commissioners. Anything else that was brought up in public comment to be addressed, or questions for staff or the applicant team?
If staff could maybe just address the ingress, egress to the apartment complex, and do people, if you are, try and get this right here. If you are southbound on Watt and you get to Jackson, can you make a U-turn in from there? So now that you are northbound on Watt, and then right-hand turn into the apartment complex? Is that?
There is a left turn pocket today into the apartment complex, and I think the hope is when they add the dual lefts, that should shorten the queue length. And then when the light turns red, those cars that are waiting in the left turn should now be able to make a left into the apartments.
Okay, so that second signaling potentially improves the ingress into that.
The improvements at Watt and Jackson should help improve it, because we're talking southbound Watt. They're trying to turn into the apartments, and today they can't because there's too much traffic or it's going too fast. But now we should be able to, do it.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I believe I drive this road almost daily. I believe they're not allowed to have a U-turn if you're following the road signs. And then because Jackson Highway used to be a state highway that had a requirement of level of service, which means that your throughput has to be hit on a given hourly basis, it would be very difficult for them to add a suicide lane to turn into the actual apartments, because then you're creating a corridor jam, and that level of speed when they pick up coming in from Watt would be dangerous for the folks, because you wouldn't want certain individuals to be rear-ended if they're coming fast from Watt going eastbound. Jackson Highway going eastbound. But I believe the county staff the traffic folks can chat a little bit more as to why there were certain design elements that were included and not included, because the level of service and the throughput is essentially what requires any traffic improvements on that corridor.
Anything to add? No.
Not necessarily.
All right, sounds good. Any other questions for the applicant team? Any closing comments? All right, thank you so much, Ms. Wilson.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Public comment is
Public comment is
ended. Public comment is ended. Please grab a seat.
I was going to say that they were given.
We've given you time. Your public comment is ended. Don't make me call security. Thank you, Mr. Miller.
We hope you'll do the right thing.
All right. We'll now move on to commission deliberation. Who would like to kick us off this evening?
I'll take a stab at it, sir.
Sounds great.
So 2 to 3 years ago, the county and the Rosemont community had an extensive conversation about the homeless encampment and the dangers that were happening right at that very corner. There was a task force created by the DA, the sheriff, the CHP, Caltrans was involved because it was just more than just the trucks that were stopping at the corner of South Watt and Jackson Highway. It was a lot of encampments, abandoned trailers, and during that time there were significant fires that also were happening north of this area, kind of going closer to Roseville Road, and RT was involved. And if I remember vividly, part of that was part of the conversation in the community, or at least the folks that were active in both the cleanup and reporting. They said that we really needed to have some sort of improvements on Jackson Corridor and Watt. and perhaps attract a business that would not only dissuade certain populations from encamping there, but perhaps add to the, not just the economic activities there, but lighting and safety. So I remember that conversation very vividly, because the Rosemont community were asking for a business to go at a corner to provide more lighting to dissuade the populations that they did not want to be there. And so, meeting with the staff, meeting with the applicants, and hearing the concerns, I'm inclined to really move this item forward, because I feel that there is an opportunity for us with the community concerns to meet some of the concerns that were also brought up by the folks that were not in this room, but have also been impacted by, I don't want to say public health nuisance, but also the issues of abandoned vehicles that are catching up on fire and all the other neighbors there. And so while we're not discussing the alcohol license this evening, I do believe that there is a level of security that the sheriff has placed on the application that is going to be considered by the Board of Supervisors that would need to be met by the applicant in order for them to get their alcohol license. And from what I'm seeing, even though that's something that we're not discussing today, it goes hand in hand into parallel of what this project could potentially do, is not just a catalyst for this community in here, but hopefully address some of the other concerns that the community 3 years ago galvanized when the homelessness and the encampment and unsafe abandoned vehicles were literally being lit on fire at the corner of that street. And so the county did an amazing job. They cleaned this up. We were all volunteering. We picked up, more than just litter, but our fair share of needles and other paraphernalia that your children would not be wanting to see. And then the county put in no stopping signs at that corner all throughout. And so I think that there's an opportunity here to include a third party to also be equally responsible and also be held responsible by the community should their conditions not be met. And I think that we do have laws and regulations in place that can hold our county staff and the applicant accountable should they go above and beyond the scope. And so, I'm willing to listen to to have the conversation with the commissioners, but really the safety and the traffic is two of the concerns that we have there. And I think it's an opportunity for us to, if this project is approved, to have a third applicant be able to make improvements on the Watt corridor that we as a commissioning body in the last 2 years have already heard from both the applicants and county staff that have not been fully funded. So South Watt, that turns into Elk Grove Flooring, further getting all the traffic that's going to be in the industrial area in the south of the county, but also the folks coming in from Elk Grove. It's not a fully funded project, and so we have a willing applicant that's trying to pay their fair share at a section that's already been identified by the county as some of the roads that have already been left behind significantly because of the lack of development. And so I'm trying to balance, of course, the concerns of the community versus the needs of the county overall. And I'll leave it up to that for now. But thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Appreciate that history on the site.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, staff, and to the applicant and to the folks that came out from the public tonight. For me, when I look at this project, I think about its uses and its underlying uses, and for me, what I see is a property that is zoned industrial, that is adjacent to industrial property, that's probably going to be remaining industrial for a good amount of time on two very busy roadways that have traffic volumes in excess of 36,000. So, many neighborhoods have adjacent or near adjacent fueling station. Mine certainly has many of them. We all drive cars, or almost everybody probably drives a car. And so I see this as a very logical location for a fueling station. I think for those reasons, we'll be supporting the project.
Commissioner Conklin?
Thank you very much. I want to first appreciate and applaud the Vice Chair's articulation and historical record of what's transpired in that area. I've too have traveled there frequently and very intimately familiar with the surrounding area. I think this is a very innovative plan that's unique to this to kind of work in a very unique space. I appreciate the applicant's patience during this process because I believe this is a much needed economic hub or catalyst for this space. I think it brings a net benefit to the local residents. I think it creates economic opportunities and employment opportunities and commerce. I think for the thoroughfare and the kind of communities out through Jackson Highway, there's RV, travel spots, there's wineries, there's so much that is connecting those communities, and we have a vacant lot there, and I can't think of really a better business model plan for that spot that to help kind of connect those communities together. So I'm excited for the plan. And we'll be supporting it when given the opportunity.
Commissioner Corona-Sabagnano.
I too want to thank Commissioner Borja for walking us through that history and telling us a little bit of what has happened. I think I too can support this project. I don't think that, the community asking for a business, I don't know if a gas station was at the top of that list, but it's what's before us today, and I think it will address some of the concerns that Commissioner Borja mentioned, even though, a gas station can bring other concerns and issues to that area. I'm not a big fan of having gas stations near neighborhoods, but I do see this as potentially something that will address the overall issues that have occurred, and just hope that, the applicant and the county will work together to make sure that some of those other concerns that the community has raised in a longer term, history-wise, on this project are addressed, should this project move forward. So, thank you.
Thank you. I don't have much to add other than I'm disappointed we're not going to have some outdoor tables. I hope Maverick reconsiders that and talks to the state of California about maybe a better way to do that than asking if you can eat your food here or take it to go. I think this is really an area where a buffer is required between an industrial use and probably continued industrial use in a neighborhood. And I think this is probably just the start of having more amenities for the community that's there that you could walk to in multiple different directions if traffic is bad. And I appreciate the crosswalks. I appreciate the thought that has gotten put in as far as screening goes. And circulation and flow. And I get that a perfect solution hasn't been worked out. It sounds like trucks are already turning onto Canberra and trying to figure out how to U-turn. And so I would say that Department of Transportation, and then if they don't solve your issues, if there are issues once this gets built, and we are seeing trucks rattle down Canberra, please come back to this body and complain and yell at us because it is not our intention to bring 18-wheelers through any residential neighborhood. And so just know that we'll encourage, or I will personally encourage, the Department of Transportation to find a better solution if the ones that the applicant has proposed do not meet those intentions. Because I don't think any of us want 18-wheelers driving through our neighborhood. That being said, my kids love walking over to the gas station across the street from my house and getting a Slurpee. And I like filling up there at the end of my day and beginning of my day sometimes when I forget my car's on empty and have to drive to Sacramento. I guess I said I didn't have much to add, but I had a little bit to add there. So thanks for giving me the time. I'll be happy to entertain a motion.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Happy to second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second for staff recommendation. Any further deliberation?
I just want to say a couple of things, and I appreciate the neighborhood who's very vigilant and active about this. Now that you have a project that may move forward, you guys are going to be the eyes and ears of any other trucks that may or may not be loitering at the private driveway. And so just as much as we encourage activism in your communities, I really do hope that you can hold respectfully the Maverick team accountable to make sure that they follow through with the promises that they had here in this evening. So that's just my 2 cents. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for that addition. Please call the roll.
And Commissioners Borja,
Yes.
Conklin,
Yes.
Corona Sabignano,
Yes.
Devlin,
Aye.
and Rathel.
Yes.
And the motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right, that moves us to our miscellaneous portion of the agenda, our planning director's report.
Nothing on my report tonight. I do note, looking ahead, that we have, I think, 3 items for the next agenda and 3 more for the first hearing in August. So relatively light for a change. And I think a number of those are uncontested as well. So
Thank you. Any scheduling items or any other commissioners have planned to travel that they know they're not going to be in attendance? All right.
Well, I think I might be unavailable on the 12th of August. Do we have a meeting that day?
12th of August. Yes, we do.
Strong likelihood at the moment that I'll be absent for that.
Sounds good. We'll be down to 4 for August 12th. Anyone else?
August 26th. It's probably 99% chance I won't be here.
It's my birthday. You're not going to come celebrate for that commission meeting?
If we can celebrate at the Capitol.
Oh, nice. There we go. All right. And general public comments?
No general public comments.
All right. Thank you so much for your time tonight this evening. We're going to go ahead and adjourn at 7:16.